Well, Margot, I remember, I'm old enough to remember this whole Tonya Harding episode that your movie portrays. And let me tell you, you really embody her. I mean, you really take over her life, and we believe that you are Tonya Harding. When along the way, as you were getting ready to do the movie, did you know you had it and feel like you had the performance there?
Yeah, I mean, it's always a strange thing. Playing a character is a, it takes a while to get into their mindset anyway. But in the instance of this character, since she's a real life person and was so well documented, there was a ton of footage. I spent 6 months studying her mannerisms, her dialect, her story, how the story was kind of viewed by the general masses at the time. And I mean, there was so much I could do without even meeting her in person. So I prepped for so long, but even still, it always takes me a little bit. Once I get on set, it takes a couple of days to kind of ease into the character. And then at some point, something clicks and I'm like, oh, I've got it. I get it now. Dove in our first day of shooting was, I did like 40 pages of dialogue on our first day. It was all the interview scene stuff when it's Tonya in her 40s. So I think somewhere during that day, I found her for sure.
Before I ever saw even a trailer, I just knew the movie was being worked on, and I was worried. I didn't know how your whole team would approach this, but it's dramatic, but it's funny, and it's so well constructed and edited and put together. I was quite impressed with this movie, and I didn't know what to expect going in.
Thanks. Yeah, no, I think a lot of people are curious. You know, I think a lot of people ask, like, why are you making a movie about this? I think a lot of people presume that they know the whole story already, and judgment on her. They pass judgment on all these people, but I think that's why it's so interesting to see an audience reaction, because we are showing them something aside to the story they didn't know, and people just keep coming out of the theaters being like, I'm so surprised. I can't believe I didn't know any of that, and I can't believe I care. So that's awesome. I mean, to hear people say that is high praise for us.
I might mention to you a moment ago, we talked to so many people from your movie, and I remember on Steven's interview, he said when he was tackling, how to do the movie, he said one of the most interesting things for him was realizing that the various people he interviewed or that were focused on in books and so forth, they all were telling different stories and believing them, so he could hook into that. All of you could hook into the fact that nobody knows the real truth here.
Yeah, it really stopped mattering. Like, what actually happened didn't matter to us. And a lot of people, before they see the movie, keep saying, well, okay, so what actually happened? Like, who did it? And it was like, oh, no, it's never about that. The point of the movie is that everyone has their own version of truth, and they believe it wholeheartedly. And even when it sounds completely different from two different people's perspective, they're talking about the same event, but they remember it in different ways. They tell themselves things for a certain reason at a certain time so they can, live with themselves afterwards, like we all do in any situation. I think we remember ourselves in a specific way because we want to way we acted at the time. So it's interesting. It's really interesting. One of the best things about the script is that you do see so many people's version of the events, and they are so contradictory.
When we spoke with Allison, she said we asked if she had gotten to talk to the lady that plays Tonya's mother, but she had not. They couldn't track her down. So I think there was one little bit of maybe something, an interview or something from way back, but she and Stephen and Craig and all of you really had to come up with that character kind of on your own.
Yeah, I mean, Stephen really wrote LaVona from Tonya and Jeff's point of view, and it happens to be the one thing that Tonya and Jeff seem to agree on is what Tonya's mum was like. So he got a lot of colorful details from them. There's also a lot of, I mean, in that footage you see at the end of our film, you kind of see real life Tonya and a coat and a burden on her shoulder, the way Allison Janney does in our film. So she obviously was a big personality and huge relationship in Tonya's life, being her mother and And it was important to show that side of Tonya's life. You could see her upbringing, really how it really affected the person she became, and how she, you know, how she dealt with this situation, and all those kinds of things coming from the background she did, and growing up with the woman she grew up with.
Well, Allison always knocks it out of the park. I've never seen her like this before on film or TV. What was your relationship like working with her?
Oh, we got along immediately. It was, I mean, I think Allison Janney has the best one-liners in movies anyway. I mean, my friends and I have been quoting Allison Janney for my whole teen life. You know, from 10 Things I Hate About You, or from whatever. I mean, she's just had such an incredible career, and different incredible characters. You've never seen her like this before. It's entirely different. But I was thrilled to be working with her, and on set it was incredible. Like we get along. It wasn't one of those things where we, you know, since our characters kind of butt heads, we stayed away from each other. I was like, I'm hanging out with Allison Janney. This is awesome.
And Sebastian, really the whole movie rides on the chemistry between you and Sebastian at different stages of your lives. Tell us about working with him.
And that working with Sebastian was amazing. It's what I really find my character when I'm acting with someone. I feel a little lost when I'm on my own. So to me, the people I have, you know, my sparring partners, they're hugely important. And from a producerial point of view, we knew how important it was to find the right Jeff, and a lot of fantastic actors sent in audition tapes. But as soon as we saw Sebastian's, it was like, who is this guy? And I was shocked when I went on IMDb and realized it's the guy from the Marvel movies, the Winter Soldier, and the guy from Gossip Girl. I was like, wait, he just disappeared into this role. I mean, he showed up to and then we did chemistry reads. I read with a couple of actors. Sebastian showed up with the moustache, with a turtleneck on. And I mean, you saw no movie star in him. He was Jeff Gillooly. It was so bizarre. He really transformed, and his version of Jeff that we could understand Tonya being with, or Tonya staying with, because when he has a lot of difficult scenes, you know, he has to act out in a very, very violent way. But then, you know, we still need to be emotionally investing in their relationship. We still need to think, oh, well, first kiss, that's really nice, and all that kind of stuff. And then 2 seconds later, he hits her in the face, and you still need to live through their relationship for a while longer. So it was going to be a really tricky role for whoever was going to play the character. And I can't imagine. Yeah, I mean, having seen to it, Sebastian's was a totally different take. He made the anger almost seem like a child having a tantrum, smashing his toys, and then immediately regretting smashing his toys. And it was just a smart way of doing it, because his anger didn't feel premeditated. It didn't feel calculated. And in that way, it was easier to understand why someone would stay with him for as long as Tonya did.
Why was it important for you to be a producer on the movie, to have a little bit more of control to make sure that everything would come out the way you wanted? Or what was the impetus that you wanted to be a producer? Well,
I first approached the script as a producer. I wasn't looking at it specifically as an acting role. We, at the time at the company, I mean, we were looking for female-driven content that could operate in the high-end indie space, and something that felt original, obviously. A lot of scripts. So when you read one that stands out from the masses, it's something special, and that's what this was. We read I, Tonya, and immediately, obviously, saw incredible female characters there. But I wanted to play her as well. She's like, the role scared me a little bit. I didn't know if I could pull it off, but those are normally the roles that I want to go after. And when I read the script, I didn't realize it was a true story. I didn't even realize Tonya was a real life person. So, you know, that made it even more fascinating. I think the script was just so original. It had a very rebellious quality to it, where it seemed to break every rule follows. You know, there were so many different, like, you know, the mockumentary style framing device that's used throughout the film. Narrators commenting on their own storylines and giving varying versions of events, and, you know, the non-linear structure, all those things. It was refreshing and wild to read. It felt rebellious, and that rebellious nature, you know, kind of mirrored the characters that we were learning about. I loved the script. That is the short answer. I just really loved the script.
Well, within your answer there, I wanted to ask you specifically, you're getting on this award circuit now with a lot of things happening. And one of the ones you got in the past few days was Independent Spirit Award, which I love for this movie and for you in particular, because I don't think there's a movie out there that embodies those two words more, independent and spirit, than I, Tonya. What did you think about that particular nomination?
I've always, the Independent Spirit Awards, I've never gone to them, but I've always thought they sounded like the coolest ones. And I mean, indie films is really where my heart. So it's hugely touching. I mean, everything about this character, Tonya, the story. I mean, it's like you said, it does have rebellious quality. She kind of did things her own way. She didn't really fit in. She stood out, and there was a scrappiness to her and story. I mean, she was really the ultimate underdog that, despite her circumstances, overcame everything and reached the top in her field. And there was a hustle to her story that kind of you feel when you're making an independent film, when you're on set and, you know, our wardrobes hand making the costumes the way Tonya handmade her costumes. And, you know, our hair and makeup department didn't have a huge budget, so they're like buying the hair and makeup products from a strip mall because, well, that's where Tonya would have bought it from anyway. And, you know, there's so many parts of the filmmaking process that our crew really embraced, not just out of necessity because it's an indie film and there's budget and time constraints, but because it suited the story and people were so passionate about it, they really poured their hearts and soul into it. So for something like an Independent Spirit Awards, it feels like where our film belongs anyway. So yeah, I agree. I was so touched by that one.
You're going to love that afternoon. It's the day before the Oscars, and it does have that real independent kind of feel that, you know, under a tent out on the beach. So that is just perfect. Yeah.
No, I've heard it's really fun.
And on the other end of the spectrum, outside of the industry or the you know, actors and directors that voted for you, the Critics' Choice nominates you as well this week.
Yeah, I didn't even. I suddenly my best friend walked in, who's also my assistant. She was like, "Hey, congrats!" And I was like, "For what?" She was like, "You got nominated for a Critics' Choice Award." I was like, "What?" She was like, "Actually, for 2." And I was like, "What?" So no, I've been to that event before, and it's really fun. And funnily enough, presented an award to Jared when he won the Dallas Buyers Club. So to be one of the nominated people now is crazy, and yeah, really exciting.
Yeah, there's a bunch of nobodies in your category. People that are like up and comers, like Meryl Streep and Frances McDormand.
And yeah, I can't wrap my head around that. I can't even wrap my head around being mentioned in the same breath as those actresses. So yeah, that would be a weird, crazy, fun night.
Well, a lot of us feel like you're going to be an Oscar nominee for the first time ever. If that does happen, can you describe how that would make you feel?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like our film is it is like Tonya in a way, where it's kind of like when everyone was suddenly like, wait, this is our skate champion. I feel like if our film was amongst the Oscars or something, everyone would be like, how did you get in here? Like, you're like this scrappy ragtag bunch of people, and you're this, you know, big fancy glorious thing. It would be wild. It would actually it would suit the spirit of the film so well if it did happen. But honestly, I think up to this point we're grateful everyone even wants to see our film. The feedback's been great so far. Anything beyond that is going to be icing on the cake.
In that spirit, you should design your own outfit for the Oscars.
So it might.
One last question as we wrap up. Tonya Harding herself and Jeff himself, have they seen the movie? And if so, what was their reaction?
There on Tuesday night, and Tonya came. So we showed it to her a week before we premiered at Toronto Film Festival, because that's the first time, you know, a large group of people are going to see it. So we wanted her to see it first out of respect to her. And, you know, she wasn't a consultant on the film. She didn't get filmed, what scenes went in, how we said it. So it was scary to show it to her. We had no idea how she was going to react, but we had told her before we made it, like, it's a feature film, it's not a traditional biopic, and it's a film, and we're going for it. Like, it's not the usual film you see. So she was really understanding about it then, and she was really understanding about it when she saw it. She said that she laughed and she cried, and she said there's obviously bits that she didn't agree with, you know, the bits told from Jeff's point of view, she obviously didn't agree with, but for the most part, she said we were pretty spot on. I mean, she said seeing Allison up there was like seeing her mom. She said when Sebastian started yelling, it just like took her right back, and I think that would have been a confronting thing to do. And she just, yeah, she thanked me. She said thank you for putting my side of the story out there after all this time. Yeah, she was really great about it.
The best review you could have, really, on this kind of movie.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
Well, congratulations on everything. When I saw it, I just thought, you know, this is going to be, the crowds are going to eat it up. The critics are going to eat it up. Maybe some of these awards will as well. And I'm so happy that all that's happening for you now.
Thank you. We're just, I don't know, this film's like my baby. So the fact that everyone's liking it is just, it's the nicest thing in the world. I really appreciate you wanting to do this interview too. Thank you.